Can all of you see my slides?
Yes.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, very nice.
Yes.
Okay, so you're excited about seeing the slides, or is it like, okay, I have seen these slides earlier online. I'm sure all of you have worked on business training online and everything. So you're excited about the slides, or is it like, no, tell me what is a BA? I mean, I want to know. You want to see the slides, or you want to just hear more stories about what is a BA?
Slides are also good. I mean, both the things equally.
Okay, because I personally find slides, as a way of communicating. But I think if you connect with me on one-to-one basis regarding each example that I have, I think you will be more at benefit. So this session is being recorded, so you can always go back and slides also. So there is no need to take down notes. But I want you to pay full attention. Just close your eyes and listen to me, and we can talk more and discuss the slides more. So basically, to start about business analysis, okay, how an IT company works is very important to understand. Okay, then you will understand where a business analyst fits in. And I think only one candidate here is from IT industry. Bharti, I believe you are from IT industry. Other than that, Akshata, Purani,
yes,
and Hiralal, you are all not from the IT industry. Okay. See, okay. So let me explain the IT industry a bit, how a small project works, and then you'll understand the big picture. So let me take an example of a very simple system and something you all might have seen, a basic library management system in your college library, right? So suppose I am an IT firm and you are a librarian. Each one of you are a librarian, okay? So I approach you and say, you know what, I can do some software for you, okay? And you're going to ask me as a librarian that, what can you do for me? So I'm going to obviously tell you that, see, you have a library, you have probably 700,000 books or 1 million books, and how do you manage the in and out? What would you tell me as a librarian? So let's start with, Hira. What would you tell me as a librarian that you have 1 million books? How will you manage that? Hira, let's start with you. How would you manage, 1 million books?
As a librarian, it is so easy if I get some help from the software so that I can able to know in and outs, and I could able to specify what are the books that were on the shelf and what are the books that were out of the shelf. So it gives me a comprehensive approach to know about the more detailed information about the books in the library.
Very nice. And Purani, how would you approach this problem? There are 1 million books. I am a software engineer, but you don't know about what I can do. But you just have to manage 1 million books. How would you go about managing this library?
Yeah, we'll create a register or something so that we have all data stored in it.
Yes.
So something like that.
Okay. All right. I'll move on to Akshata. How would you approach this problem of managing 1 million books?
Yeah, I think I would tell him to create a database or something like similar to what Bharti Purni said, that somewhere database where if I want some book, maybe I can just type the keywords, author name or something, and then it would appear. Something with respect to database.
Right. Very close. And Bharti, how about you? Did I ask Bharti or I asked Purani? I think I asked Purani. Bharti.
Yes. I would also recommend a database where we enter the names of the books which are available right now, and whenever a book is taken by someone, we'll update the same.
Okay.
In the database.
Okay. All right. So now let me take the question back to Hira. So Hira, what is a database? Do you know what is a database? You don't have to tell me the dictionary definition. What, in your opinion, is a database? And there are no rights and wrongs. Just tell me what you think is a database.
A storage of useful information.
Right. Okay. All right. So I think all of us are very close, but let me refine it a bit further. Okay. So if you are a librarian, okay, first thing that you would do obviously is classify the books. Correct? So you would say these books belong to, let's say, botany. These books belong to, zoology. These books belong to fiction. These books belong to non-fiction, right?
Right.
Okay. I would just request everyone to be on mute. Let me see if I can, control the mute. I can put all of us on mute and just leave me alone. Let me see. Okay. Okay. All right. Never mind. So I would want to start with, say, classification. I would say, hey, you know what? 1 million books. Let me divide them up into some 4 or 5 or 8, 10 categories, right? So I would say, let's take one simple example. Zoology is category 1. Okay. Botany is category 2. And let's say fiction is category 3. And say maybe non-fiction or something that I have in my library is category 4. Right? Makes sense, right? To divide it into 4 parts. Correct? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear.
All right.
Yes.
Very nice. Okay. So then next thing I would want to do is probably as a librarian divide my library into 4 parts, right? And say, you know what, if a student comes to my library, he should just go left and he should see an arrow and go left, and that will be zoology. If he goes right, it's botany. He goes down, he gets fiction, and if he comes up, he gets non-fiction. Simple, right? That's how every human being thinks, correct? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah, all right.
Okay. So now the next step is, within fiction, somebody may come and tell me, how about fiction that goes back to 1900 and fiction that was between 1900 and 1920. What about the books that were written after 21 to 1950? Okay, I'm getting some background noise.
Yes, there is so much of disturbance.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I would want to divide the fiction books into 4 parts. Say, let's say between 1900 to 1925, right, and 1926 to 1950, 1950 to 1975, and then 1976 to 2000. Right. It makes some sense that okay, I have at least divided the books as per the time they were initially published. Okay. Right. So this is a further classification. And then somebody may come and say, you know what, this is a wrong way to, catalog the books. Somebody may just say, why don't you use the last name of the author and categorize them, right? So what I will do is I'll say, yeah, that's a good idea. So let's start from there, because when any student comes into my library, he doesn't say that I want, what do you call, a novel by this author, let's say Sidney Sheldon, that was written in 1984, and I don't know the name of the novel, but I want to read Sidney Sheldon. So it will be so difficult for me as a librarian to tell that individual student that, hey, you know what, go to 1960 to 1980 section or whatever and find that book, right? So what I can do is I can refine on this further and say any author whose last name ends between A to F comes under category 1, G to M category 2, N to say X category 3, and remaining in category 4. Right? Makes sense? This is easier for me. So now I know if we say Sidney Sheldon, I think S, where will S go? And then I will tell him the category. Right? So that's how any human being should be thinking. Right? And this is basically a foundation of any requirement, that you have to divide and conquer. You have to divide everything down to the pieces that enable, a sort of what do you call, there's a word used in our industry called traceability. I'll come to that later. But there is a rationality in the way we have to think. Okay, I have not defined for you what is a database. I've not reached there. I'm going very slowly. I'm just giving you one example to show you how every single industry divides and conquers its, logic. This is the same logic you can find in healthcare, insurance, banking, finance, you name it, and this is the way everybody tends to think. They have to break it down to next level. And any interview you go to tomorrow, you should always, and my recommendation is, you should always, the questions that will come to you, you cannot predict, but you should always think about breaking it down into logical, pieces, so that the client at the other end can also start thinking that, okay, here is a person who can think logically, who can break down all the aspects, or whatever questions you have asked based on that, you can break it down. So, okay, so everyone understood like how I tried to break down a very simple example. I did not go into much detail, but I'm just showing you one illustration of how we break down information. Bharti, Purani, Akshata, Tira. So this is a very simple example. You can keep this example with yourself, and always, you will face a lot of interviews tomorrow. Okay, they will ask you all kind of questions, and and they say, do you know how life insurance works? Or do you know how health insurance works? And what if this? What if that? So you have to ask questions and then break it down into pieces. That is how I would like to think about it. Okay. So Kira, coming back to you, you answered, what is a database? Basically, it's the information stored in, some logical fashion. So yeah, that's what a database essentially is, and that's the first thing a librarian should be telling a software engineer, that see, I know how to divide my books. You should know how to create a system that exploits this logic. Okay. What librarian is doing here is job of a business analyst here. He is basically, or he or she is dividing the whole 1 million books into some categorization, and that categorization is exactly the way students come and ask for books. Either they go for the title or you go for the author. Have you ever tried searching for a book in any other manner?
No.
No. You either ask for author. In our school days, some authors are very famous. We just go and ask for the author, or we go and ask for the title. Correct? Everybody agrees with that part?
Yes.
Great. Now, the librarian will say, you know what, we have one subscription or a magazine. The magazine name is there. It has no author, right? But we have editions, January, February, March, April. So there is another way of looking at it, right? So you may say, how about a magazine like, let's say, Sports Star or Frontline or India Today, but it comes twice a month. So there can be some further classification for magazines, right? So it is not the job of a software engineer to ask these questions. A software engineer can create a system to manage, who's owning the book right now and when he's supposed to give it back. If he's not giving it back, he will put a fine on that student, and if there is a loss of the book, he can create a loss entry. But who will teach the software engineer that, see, all these 1 million books need to be classified? That exactly is the job of a business analyst. Okay, so are each one of you able to relate to this example? That's how a librarian is behaving like a business analyst here.
Yes.
Okay, so basically the librarian here is understanding the business of library, that how library material is stored. So he understands that business, and when I say analyst, he's giving us that classification, that logic, those scenarios he's creating, which help us understand that how the whole process is managed. Okay, I understand each one of you hasn't worked as a business analyst, it's only through these examples that you will start feeling like a business analyst over the period of training. That you will feel, okay, here is this process and I'm going to break it down. We're going to do some exercises also. So this way you can learn, there is no clear-cut definition. Hey, you know what, this is a business analyst. No, it doesn't happen like that. It's over a period of time you realize that each one of us has to be a business analyst in our life. It's a way of thinking, it's a way of responding to a situation. It's not about, like a policeman job that I'm supposed to do this, and then I become a business analyst. That is also an approach, but my way of looking at business analyst is you have to start thinking of yourself as a business analyst, and my job is to help you start thinking as a business analyst under any situation, not only whenever you go to a bus stand, when you catch a train. There is a lot of business analysis going on there also. It's not, it's not a matter of, fact that a train comes, on time and it departs on time, and there are policies in the train, there are categories in the train. You have saver, super saver, economy, you have, premium, and same way in the aeroplanes we have those segments, right? We have all traveled in the aeroplanes, so we all know. But it's not a matter of fact that, these planes arrive on time, they leave on time, they charge you when you pre-book the ticket, they charge you for extra baggage. All those scenarios, somebody is thinking, in the airline, behind the, the people we see in front of us. Somebody is thinking, and somebody is asking those developers, the developers, to put that logic into the computer program, saying that, what, if a customer comes in 20 minutes before the flight departs, take him in, but consider it as a late check-in, and do not reward him some bonus points. Somebody may come up with a weird situation, weird logic like that, and then somebody needs to debate it. So I hope you're getting what I'm saying, that every situation has a business analysis attached to it. Right?
Yes.
Yes,
All right.
got it.
So, okay, I hope everyone is able to understand me here. Like, one example I, went into detail, but
Yes, we can understand you well.
all right. So moving on to the slide, okay, I'm opening up a slide, and let me just expand a little bit. It might be too small. All of you can see the slide?
Yes.
Okay. So let me just play it so that we can. Okay. Okay. So this is a very technical definition of who business analyst is, and that's why I don't, start with this slide. Rather, I start with an example of a librarian who is in the business of managing the library, and he knows how to manage library better than us. Okay, and I will relate the same example. So we are saying here that business analysis is the set of tasks and techniques used to work as a liaison among stakeholders in order to understand the structure, policies, and operations of an organization and recommend solutions. So a lot of English out here, okay, and you and I cannot repeat this definition under normal circumstances. I mean, I can guarantee you that much. I cannot repeat this definition. But if you look at the diagram on the right, okay, let's put a librarian out here, okay, and the same software engineer, the two friends, the librarian and the software engineer, developer, and relate to these 5-6 words. If you are able to connect to these 6, words, you are home. You don't need to know the entire definition. So here, the librarian is your business analyst, and he is telling the software engineer everything. So I will go over each word and tell like what part of the conversation relates to that word. So your librarian says, you are here, and I want you to manage or create a system that will run my library. What I want is, like Shira said, you will be able to search, the student will be able to search any book using the program. They will just enter, let's say, zoology, and then all the books that have zoology in the title should appear on the screen. The software engineer says, okay, I will do that. Then the librarian says, I want every book to be searchable by the author. So he says, okay, and then every book will be searchable by the last name or the first name of the author. Very good. Then the librarian says, hey, you know what? I want you to keep a track of books going in and out. So this is like somebody, a student comes in, he says, I'm gonna search a book on zoology today. He searches a book, he finds 8 books, he picks up 2 books and takes it to the librarian. The librarian just says that these are checked out to the student. The software engineer says, yes, I understand that. And the librarian says, if he does not bring the book within 14 days, the system should automatically put a fine that we can, add to his fees. So the software engineer says, yes, I will do that. Okay. And then the librarian says, I also want to know at any point of time how many books in the library from the 1 million books are out in circulation and how many books we have and how many books have an overdue on them. So the software engineer says, yes. Now, you know what, in this conversation, what has happened is librarian has defined the area, right? He's defined what he wants the software engineer to do, correct? Is it a simple enough example for all of us to understand?
Yes.
Okay. Very simple, right? Very simple example. Right? So librarian, in his whatever he had in his mind, right, about the library as a business, okay, he's basically very clearly said in 4 or 5 lines what he wants out of the system, correct? That itself is your definition and scope of the business area. So now I'm gonna just change the roles and I'm gonna say you're a software engineer, and then that's the second part, which is elicit requirement. So the software engineer is obviously not going to say, hey, you know what, yes boss, I will do all of this for you by tomorrow and we are good to go. It's not going to be like that, right? The software engineer is going to come back and say, you know what, you have to help me a bit. The librarian says, okay, ask me, what is your question? So the software engineer is going to say, you know, is there any classification of the book? Because I cannot store them in the database just like alphabetically or in any order, because what's going to happen tomorrow is, if I put them, if I just list 1 million books in the database just like that, you're not going to be able to find. The librarian says, why not? So he says that, you know, when a student comes to search the book, either he's searching by the title or he's searching by the author. So the student needs to define where he's going to search. So the librarian is going to say, what do you mean by that? So he's going to say, the software engineer, see, I'm going to give you a screen. That screen will have 3 fields: title, last name, first name. So if the student knows any 3 of the information, then only I will be able to search. The librarian says, well, you have a point. That's a very good point, right? So the librarian now is going into a requirement phase. So he started thinking that, is this all a student needs, or a student is going to come and say,